my apologies for the rather casual attire today. I don't normally wear boots for work, but we're having some work done on our house at the moment, and it's quite an interesting little story that every morning this week as I've gone out to work in my normal suit and heels, my husband's been behind me with a brush going, "You're all covered in dust," so we gave up this morning because we've actually not got any floors in the house. And it was interesting when I got into work this morning, a member of staff said to me, "You're not in your heels today," and I said, "It's not compulsory as a woman to wear heels for work," and it's just interesting, isn't it, that we set this kind of image of ourselves sometimes, and then people are quite shocked. So everyone's a little bit shocked at seeing me in casual dress today. When Angie was talking, it so much resonated. It was just incredible. So I'm going to start my story as a 15-year-old schoolgirl. So my family are in now their 5th generation of running a business in Chesterfield. They're farmers. And they have run a successful farm, owned a successful farm over at Temple Normanton for 4 or 5 generations. My brother is the 5th generation, I believe now. And when I was 15 years old, I came in from school one day and we all sat having tea, as you did, didn't you? So you had the sort of dinner in terms of the roast dinner and the hot dinner at lunchtime, and you had tea in the afternoon. And of course, much of the talk was normally around the business. And my brother, there was just my brother and myself, and it was very much seen as a man's world. And I remember sitting that afternoon and saying to my father, "What do you think I should do when I leave school?" Careers were starting to come into school, and I did okay, you know, I got my O-levels as it was then. And my dad was fantastic, he was my hero, and I'll talk about him a little bit in a minute, but this was a life-changing moment because he actually sat there and said, "Well, it doesn't really matter, because get yourself a job in a shop and then your husband will take care of you." And it was lovely, you know, it wasn't said with any malice. And I just looked over that table with ham salad sitting there and said, "I'm going to show you that's not what I'm going to do." And I didn't. So I left school at 16 years old, and I went to Chesterfield College as a 16-year-old, and there's a very famous photograph of me somewhere actually sitting on the wall outside of the college that still exists now. I just can't find it, it's driving me mad. And one thing that I really, really enjoyed was cooking. And so I went to the college at the age of 16 and I did my national diploma in hotel management. And Trish, I think, has shared one of my famous stories.
2 years ago, yes, one of your famous stories.
And I'll share it with you really, really quickly. So I was a bit of a, you know, as you are at 16, you've got a bit of an attitude going on. And this particular morning, probably about 6 months into the course, we had to do silver service for what we were told was a very important man from the council. He didn't have a name, we were just told that this dignitary was joining the college.
And he was a man, of course.
And he was a man. And the principal was a man, and the deputy principal was a man, and the vice principal was a man, and the assistant principal was a man, and here was me, having been taught how to deliver silver service. We had an executive dining room that was just for the executives, and you can imagine most of those executives were male. And I was standing in the corner as a 16-year-old and the head of department, Mr. McCulloch. Remember? Said, right, you know, we've got this very important man from the council attending today, and the principal and the deputy principal and the assistant principal and the vice principal all coming for lunch, and you're all serving today. And I was sort of thinking, oh, for goodness sake, you know. So, and they came and they all sat down, and Mr. McCulloch, there was lots of, you know, sort of fuss around them, and they all came and sat down. And we were serving a lamb cutlet in a red wine jus. So I got my platter, and my spoon and fork, and I went off and I served the very important man from the council, and I went round and served the very important man, the very important principal, and then I was thinking, oh, this is quite a double, and Mr. McCulloch was standing in the corner looking all very pleased. And then it got to the deputy principal, and I went to serve him, and the spoon and fork did a little bit of a shimmy, and the lamb cutlet fell on his lap, and I mean on his lap, and the red wine jus went all over his knee, and they just all sat there, and I then thought, what am I going to do? So mistakenly I then tried to rescue it from his knee, and at that point Mr. McCulloch was coming in slow motion with this look of horror on his face, and they all just stood up and no one spoke to me. I didn't see the deputy principal after that. I'm not quite sure whether I traumatised him, but I just remember feeling completely overwhelmed, and more overwhelmed because I was a young girl with these very, very important men standing around me. So I decided that perhaps catering wasn't for me. I went on and got my qualification, but Chesterfield College absolutely changed my life. And the reason that it changed my life was because it gave me that can-do attitude. And I got the teaching bug. I just fell in love with teaching. And I did my teacher training at the college. And then I've gone on, and I've never actually worked in Chesterfield. I've always lived here, and this is home to me. It always has been. I've never ever lived anywhere else. And when we come back from holiday and I see the Crooked Spire, there's just that lovely feeling of home. There's just something about this place, isn't there? And I could never imagine living anywhere else. But I've travelled all over the UK with my career. I've worked for 3 other colleges. I've had my own private training provider, run my own education business, and then was asked by the college to come back about 11 years ago, and the college at the time was under an awful lot of pressure to engage more with employers and to move away from being a traditional sixth form college, and my role was to grow apprenticeship provision, and we started with a team of 9 of us, and we began by engaging with employers. We put an employer strategy together. At that time we had around £1 million worth of income coming in from apprenticeships. We had 150 apprentices, mainly in engineering and construction, and we've grown that successfully over the last 10 years, and we've generated over £65 million worth of income for the college, and we have over 4,000 to 5,000 apprentices all over the UK. I didn't do that, the team did it. I just empowered the team in terms of supporting them to achieve. And every year I share this story with our students. So can you imagine, 2,500 16-year-olds, and we have them on a rolling programme, and they all come and meet with me. And you can imagine, can't you, they're all sort of sat there thinking, oh, Miss is going to give us the rules now. Miss is going to tell us what we need to do. And I share this story with them about being a 16-year-old student at Chesterfield College, and some 30 so many years later, what an absolute privilege it is to be the principal. And what's really interesting when I look, there's probably about 300 students at a time, is that the girls sit up. It's the girls that go, wow, you were here. So I say, where do you think I was 30 odd years ago? And they're all probably thinking, I don't know. And I go, I'm sat exactly where you were, where you are right now. That's where I was 30 odd years ago, as a 16-year-old. And for me, it's about empowering young women and guys. It's not just about girls, it's about young guys as well, and it's about empowering them to do something different. So we have engineers, women in engineering, we have a young student, a male student actually, who has just got himself a place at a top beauty school, and he's training to be a beautician, and he's got himself a job working for Lancome. So for me, what I do in terms of looking at my career, looking at what I stand for really, is when there is bias or someone does make a negative comment, particularly about my gender, I tackle it as a human being, not as a woman. Because I should be treated, and we all should be treated fairly. And I remember one of my first board meetings as a senior leader, and a male member of the board came up to me at the beginning of the meeting, and it was a 5 o'clock meeting, and he said to me, "Who's cooking the tea?" And I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "Well, it's really late, and you know, what do you do for tea when you have a late meeting?" And I said, "Well, my husband cooks the tea." "Your husband cooks the tea?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a trained chef, and he's actually a better cook than me now." So, you know, it's just sometimes about tackling things with humour, but also tackling things as a fellow human being rather than as a woman. And being a woman is very, very important, but it's about us all working together and respecting and valuing each other for the people that we are, not the gender that we are. And my father was my role model, and like Angie, I lost him a couple of years ago, so I became principal in the March of 2017, and he died of lung cancer in the June and got ill very, very quickly. And then shortly after that, we were having some real challenges around infrastructure within the organisation and trying to get the right people to really drive the organisation forward. And then on the last day of term, we were just about to, the winter term, we were just about to go down and have a glass of mulled wine with all of the staff. And I got a call from my eldest daughter in absolute hysterics, who was in Chesterfield Children's Hospital with my then 7-year-old granddaughter. And they'd found a tumour on her spine. And so within 8 months I'd lost my father. I'd taken on this new job. I'd got a 12-year-old now. She was only sort of 9, 10 years old at the time. And then was facing, you know, this life-threatening illness, and she had 8 hours worth of surgery in the January. And sometimes it is difficult. It is difficult balancing what's perceived to be what you should be doing as a woman, and of course as a mother and a wife, and they are your first priorities, but they should also be the first priorities as a father and as a husband or a partner, shouldn't they? So that's where I really do take the gender away. And so it was really, really challenging, and people sometimes don't see you as a human being. They see you as a principal or a chief exec, and that means that you haven't got blood running through your veins. You're actually that resilient and that strong and that confident that, you know, it takes that human element away. And I think for me, being principal of Chesterfield College is a privilege every single day. And when I go down and I sit with those young people and I look at the difference that we're all making in really, really challenging times for our youngsters. You know, they live in such very different lives to what we were used to living. You know, if I wanted to phone a friend in the evening, my dad would give me 5 minutes on the landline, and then the phone was always in the hall because it was cold, so you didn't stay on it very long, did you? Because it was really freezing. Whereas now they're in each other's faces every minute of every day, and it creates an awful lot of additional pressure. And so for me, it's about being a human being. My job doesn't give me privileges over anyone else. When the college opens in the morning, it's the cleaning staff, it's the caretakers that open up, it's the catering staff that get everything ready for us to begin work. So I've always hated hierarchy. That name on my door does not make me any more important than anyone else. In fact, it makes me less important, because I cannot do my job without the fantastic staff and the students and everyone who contributes, and everyone therefore is just as equal. So that's a little bit of a kind of whistle-stop tour. What I would say to any woman is you can and you will if you believe. And self-belief is everything, and that doesn't mean that you don't have dark days. I've been very, very lucky to be married to 2 incredible men who have supported me through my career. My husband looks after me in the same way that I look after him. And yesterday morning, when I was about to go out of the door looking like I'd just been covered in flour, he was the one who was dusting me down, and he dusts me down frequently. And so everything is about a partnership, everything is about working together, and I believe that the greatest skill and the greatest, it's okay, it's absolutely fine, attribute of any leader, man or woman, is humility and a little bit of vulnerability. Being able to say, you know what, I don't know what to do, because people then will help. So people talk about confidence and empowerment, and they talk about great leaders being determined and being really strong characters. I actually believe that yes, they probably are important, but they're not as important as humility. Thank you.